Thanks, Tim. And thanks for putting that 12-year-old picture of me up there. I feel a lot younger today. So.
No.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Today, I'll give you an introduction to the Windows Virtual Desktop, and we'll touch over user experience, security, management, Azure, economics, partner ecosystem. We'll dive into some architecture and costs. Then we'll talk about what Oakwood has to offer in this space. All right, so let's talk about what Windows Virtual Desktop is. I think you probably all have heard about it and know kind of what it is, but it's really it's a revolution in remote desktop services technology. So you can take WVD and deploy a single Windows 10 desktop or 1,000 in less time than it takes to image one single laptop. It's really changing the way we can roll out desktops to our users quickly and efficiently. So let's talk about what needs it fulfills. We have tightened control of security regardless of what device you use. We have greater control over access to financial or regulatory applications and systems. We have seamless integration with bring your own device programs, temps, contractors, field engineers, people that are coming and going in your organization can have a similar desktop and secured in the way that you mandate. And then it enables some specialized software testing. If you need to test a new software package or a new deployment for your users, you can easily spin up some Windows 10 to test those on. So the number one topic right now, I believe on everybody's lips, is the remote workers. You know that we've had a jump from like 7 to 66% of the workforce working from home recently. So how do we secure those users? How do we keep them working when their laptops break? How do we let them work on their personal PCs? That can all be solved with Windows Virtual Desktop. All right, so the end user experience, first subject we're going to touch on here, and Microsoft touts WVD as the best end user experience for virtualized Windows 10. I would have to agree, using several in the past. This is the best that I've seen ever. So I'll agree with Microsoft on that one. WVD allows users to connect from any modern device with a browser and internet connection. In fact, there is even Linux-based no clients now that boot directly into Windows Virtual Desktop. So you have a wide variety of devices to choose from. And sorry, that 20-year-old flip phone is not going to work, but any modern mobile phone will. Let's see, the Windows differentiation tab that you see there is Microsoft says that the best experience is going to be on Windows. So running virtual desktop from a Windows computer is going to be like local and indistinguishable from a normal Windows operating system. Mac OS client provides integrated remote app experience, and then for your iOS and Android and Linux devices, you have HTML5 clients that provide immersive remote app experience. And as I mentioned, the Linux also now has kernel support. So we can host multiple monitors. We can use up to 16 monitors, up to 8K resolution. Devices and resource redirection is available. So your cameras, your printers, your multi-touch devices, your pens, your time zone redirect, and of course copy and paste with clipboard. And then if we move on to our enhanced protocols, we support Hello for Business and other device-based login functionality, as well as adaptive bandwidth utilization for smooth experience or your congested or high latency networks. And we'll get into a little more about how that works later. WVD also touts extremely fast login times. We have containerized profiles that can be stored on blazing fast disks in Azure. And you can use the worldwide gateway to log in quickly from pretty much any point on the planet. We have yet to get a data center in Antarctica, so maybe not there, but anywhere else you're covered. And then you'll notice the two core services we have called out here on this page, the Microsoft 365 and Teams. These are a tenant to the integration of Windows Virtual Desktop. Teams conferencing is like local when you take advantage of multimedia redirection or GPU-enabled virtual machines. Okay. Now we have some enhanced security options that come with WVD, not available to previous RDS type rollouts. Users benefit from all the investments put into Azure security, such as your multi-factor authentication, your conditional access, certificate authentication, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that's built around security in Azure is available to WVD. It does have 3 unique security advantages that are unique to Windows Virtual Desktop from Microsoft in Azure. They use reverse connect technology, so it lowers your attack surface. Essentially, there's no open ports on your VM hosts. So one less place a hacker can scan and try to gain access to. Basically, once access has been granted from their global gateway, there's an outbound connection open to your device. We have role-based access control, so that allows granular management of your environment. Previously, you typically have to give a admin administrative rights to the server, and every admin had all of the power to do anything on that server. With RBAC, we can granularize that, so certain admins have certain abilities on each machine. And then finally, user sessions are isolated. So it means like Jane, the super consultant in St. Louis, and John, the HR guy in New York, and Sarah, the saleswoman of the year in Chicago, they can all connect to the same virtual machine without knowledge or access to each other's data. Okay. And turning our attention to management, let's discuss some of the ways WVD simplifies your support experience. For starters, WVD uses Microsoft 365 authentication. So for most that already have Office 365, Microsoft 365, et cetera, it's the same as signing into Teams, SharePoint, or Outlook, or any other Microsoft service that's hosted in the cloud. Hosts can host VMs, can serve Windows desktops and remote applications at the same time. That means the user can log into a fully immersive desktop experience or launch just a single app from a desktop shortcut without the need of specialized hosts. For example, in the past, you may have had a set of servers that host desktops and a separate set of servers that hosted just applications. And that's no longer necessary with this service. So updates to the host are further simplified by enabling scheduled updates on all hosts, or you have the option of creating a validation environment, which is basically a testing environment, where you can test your updates before you roll them out to the masses. And one last thought, the management UI is being enhanced in regular intervals, and new rollouts are coming all the time. So touch briefly on standardization and global security. It's worth noting that deploying infrastructure resources to additional geographic regions is identical to deploying resources to your local data center. So for example, if you're using scripts or going in and using the UI to deploy host pools and users and things like that, they're the exact same scripts that you use in the data center in Wisconsin that you'd use in the data center in South Africa or UK. It's the same across the world. In addition, Microsoft spends over $1 billion annually on cybersecurity to secure your data and your users. All right, real quick on the extensive partner ecosystem. Windows Virtual Desktop offers a broad partner ecosystem that's developed in collaboration with Citrix and VMware. So that means for those organizations with large investments in Citrix and VMware already, you can utilize cost savings of Azure and use your current management planes. So you have the choice between Citrix, VMware management plane, or the Windows Azure management plane. All right, and then we have our value-added partners such as us, Oakwood, and the others you see there that provide additional support, planning, and managed offerings to fit your business needs. All right, we'll talk about superior economics and cost savings. A huge factor in moving to Windows Virtual Desktop is the economics of the platform. The highly scalable platform, this is a highly scalable platform, and such it can lead to significant cost savings in infrastructure. Classic remote desktop platforms require you to pay for peak usage. What that means is if you require 10 servers during the day to service your user load, you're going to be paying for those 10 servers at night, 24/7 by 365. Your investment in that hardware is, it doesn't change. So you've paid for the 10, you always pay for the 10. And in the Azure model, you pay for what you use for consumption. So you may be paying for 10 servers during the workday, but at night you may only fall back to one for those users that are burning the midnight oil. WVD also leverages OneDrive for Business and Azure files for significant reduction in storage costs. If you take into account OneDrive instead of using personal drives as was common, you're paying almost next to nothing for that storage. Licensing can also be a big factor. If you're already licensed for Microsoft 365, there's a pretty good chance that you're already licensed for Windows Virtual Desktop. So in that case, there'd be no additional licensing costs for using Virtual Desktop. Paying for RDS CALs could be a thing of the past for your organization. However, if you already have RDS CALs with SA and no Microsoft 365 licensing, you can still use WVD, and there is an upgrade path for that. And finally, labor costs are greatly reduced. Disaster recovery, maintenance, and patching can be automated with a few clicks. Root policy and application management are familiar to any Windows admin. And for those wanting a turnkey solution, Oakwood offers a fully managed Windows Virtual Desktop. So when it comes to user devices, gone are the days of trying to recover corrupted drive or losing productivity when a laptop fan goes out. Laptops and thin clients and no clients can be swapped out immediately, getting your users back to work, right away. For the remote users, you could just as easily have them jump onto a personal PC while you mail them or drive them a new laptop. So another factor in the labor cost savings is that no loss in productivity and quick turnaround times. Okay, and then we'll dive a little deeper into the cost optimizations and architecture examples. And as you can see on this slide, we have kind of a on-prem Windows 10 single session setup where you would create a small VM for each user. You're paying for each VM as it's rolled out. And Azure with Windows 10 multi-session, use one or multiple larger VMs to service all your customers in multi-session environment. And then your economic price benefit, your user costs typically go down from $40 per user to $7 per user. Obviously, that's all dependent on the size of your organization and the amount of servers you have available, but this is the typical scenario. Should be mentioned that Windows Virtual Desktop is the only way to use multi-session Windows 10. So here we can see that on-prem you may have RDS CALs for each user that connect to an RDSH VMs. In Azure, you'll be connecting to WVD session hosts, and you no longer have a need for those RDS CALs. So I could on average save you $17 per user per month. And if you're still running Windows 7, I hope you're not, but if you are, a lot of organizations are, you get your extended security updates in Windows Virtual Desktop for free. So you can drop the cost of those if you're paying for that. That's anywhere from $25 to $200 per device per year. And then another slide on lower labor costs. This is a industry analysis slide where they went out and interviewed a lot of organizations and found that the cloud version, the labor costs for supporting cloud is 60% lower than supporting on-premise desktops. Okay, we'll get kind of into the architecture here, just kind of the big overall view. You have three pieces here. You have the clients, your devices that your users are using, and then in between you have the Microsoft managed part of Windows Virtual Desktop. So that's your global web access gateways, the diagnostics, monitoring, brokering the connections, and storing the information, SQL database. It's all managed and obfuscated by Microsoft, and the customer end users never see any of that. Now on the Azure side, this can be customer or partner managed. These are your desktops, the applications that are on your desktops, your Active Directory, your user profiles. Those can be customer managed, wherein you go in and manage every aspect of that yourself, or hand it off and have it partner managed, where all of that labor is taken on by your partners, such as Oakwood. Now a little bit more on the Citrix and VMware integration and what that looks like. You have your clients again on the left. In the middle, you can choose between Microsoft, Citrix, or VMware for your management plane. And then the Azure VMs and services are the same as the previous slide. Either they can be managed by yourselves or by a trusted partner. And a little bit on the WVD licensing requirements for your users. If you have any of those SKUs listed on the left-hand side, those are the Microsoft 365 SKUs or the Windows 10 SKUs, you already are licensed for Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, if you have those RDS CALs with software assurance, you can use the Windows Server 2012 R2 or newer. You don't get as much of the price savings because those aren't multi-session optimized. Okay, just a little bit of breakdown on what it costs per user for different types of Windows Virtual Desktop deployments. So if you look at a Windows 10 multi-session, which again you can only run in Windows Virtual Desktop in Azure, you're looking at about $6.70 per user when you take into account storage, VM costs, networking, etc. So when you look at a Windows server, that's $670. If you're looking at Windows 10 single session or Windows 10 single session personal deployment, your costs get quite a bit higher. Another cost breakdown for you, using Windows 10 multi-session versus using just Windows 10, that would be single session or personal use. Here they've compared medium user types. We'll get into user types a little bit later, but 1,000 total users with 80% of them online during the day in a pooled server infrastructure in the US East Data Center. When you start adding up the different resources required for each of these two scenarios, you start to see a very large price gap. So on multi-session, we have our VM cost at $2,797 per month. Now, if we turn to single session, where each one gets a small VM for every person, we're looking at over $21,000 per month. Again, you see the same thing with operating system disk costs, $500. versus over 15,000. In storage costs, they're relatively the same. Back-end storage is back-end storage. Network bandwidth, and then our total price is how we arrive at that $6.92 per user number, whereas you're paying more like $41 for users in a single session setup. You can see how the multi-session offers huge price savings in the long run. All right, so just a little bit on types of users. Most of you will be familiar with power users, IT users. You've got your typical business users. So Microsoft breaks them up into these categories: light, medium, heavy, and heavy graphics. Sometimes heavy is swapped out for power user. So a light user might be call centers or business people on the move, on the go, that really only use Outlook and download documents, edit a few documents. We got medium for users that are in documents in Office all the time, maybe using some database apps, some Access. Heavy is typically your IT shops, your developments, your admins, your engineerings, and then you have your CAD users. So if you go to the Microsoft portal, there's a calculator that breaks these all down. You can choose those different versions of users and tell it how many users you have, and it breaks down what your server costs will be. All right. And then a little bit about Oakwood's offering the managed Windows Virtual Desktop. On top of configuring, setting up this environment for you, Oakwood will take on the administration of that environment with proactive monitoring, incident management, change of patch management, 24/7 service desk support, and fixed cost. So as you saw on the slides before, you can estimate bandwidth at, let's say, 75 kilobytes per minute or whatever per user. And you can try to get a price figured out for, tell your CIO or your CFO what you're going to pay per month, but it's always variable. We've taken the difficulty of that and put it into a fixed pricing. So every month you'll pay the same price, no matter your bandwidth and variable costs behind the scenes. And this is just a little bit of our pricing on these servers. So we price out for the size of the server, and if you see as you go up in size and user count, your per user price becomes lower and gets closer to the price that we saw in previous slides. All right, and finally, we're currently offering a proof of concept, where if you give us 3 to 4 hours of your time a week to work with you, access to your Azure subscription, and a small fee, we'll give you a complete, fully functional Windows Virtual Desktop pilot for up to 4 users, and access to our internal architects to ask questions, voice your concerns, and discuss your scale-out approach for rolling out to a larger set of users. So that concludes our session today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments you might have.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate all the information. Do get a couple things here, if you don't mind sticking around and answering a couple questions. Try to clean these up a little bit. In what way is Windows Virtual Desktop Management different from remote desktop services? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would mention it's highly simplified. There's no RDS licensing server that you have to track or manage. There's no you're not using any of the RDP type protocols. So typically there's there's very little management. The only management you're doing is patching, scaling, of course, to save money if you want to turn your servers off during the night, and
Sure.
your monitoring and security management.
Okay, great, thanks. And also, let's see, which remote desktop clients will support Windows Virtual Desktop? Really, when you're thinking of Android and Mac, I guess.
Sure. So there is the remote desktop client for Windows 10. It can be downloaded from the store or the Microsoft website. That is the basically native Windows client with the local best best user experience according to Microsoft. There's also the the HTML5 client. Basically, it's just a link that you give your users, they bookmark it,
Okay.
and they can hop right in. Mac OS also has a native client that can be installed and used similar to the Windows 10 client.
Got it. And then last thing I see here is probably of the physical nature. Where can I deploy desktops? Is there a limit to? This probably has to do something with Azure regions, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. Azure has the largest geographical footprint in the world. I believe it was 56 countries last time I looked. So pretty much anywhere. As I mentioned, still not one in Antarctica. I'm not holding hope for that one. But you can deploy it anywhere. There's Africa's a little bit light in the data centers, but other than that, every continent has multiple. And China's a little bit of a bear, so if you want to deploy one there, you might have to let us talk you through that one.
Yep.
Any closing thoughts, guys? Jason, Jesse?
I just wanted to say thanks to Jason. I appreciate running through all the the technical requirements, kind of the what's in it for folks that might be looking at moving to WVD. I know at Oakwood, we are like a lot of our clients. We're not a big multinational corporation. We're technically a small business, just like most of the people we serve, and we want to drive this conversation around WVD. Similar to Teams a couple of years ago, going from a "Have you heard of WVD?" to "Why aren't you already using WVD?" Because for orgs that are like us, between that 15 and 1,000 users, this thing is a modern, secure, high-value proposition. Not having to manage an endpoint, having full control over your both your apps that are accessible to users. For any of the folks that are interested in like content security, information security, full control over DLP. Even down to the point of not being able to copy and paste to their to their desktop, things like that, to their notepad. That's a very attractive option. High value, because most organizations, your licensing already covers your SKUs that you would need. And as Jason alluded to, at Oakwood, we have a pilot that can be spun up in less than a week, typically, for just a few bucks. And then you can work on, standing it up and scaling it, or you can have Oakwood help you with that. But, there is no better way to reduce some of your costs, repurpose your budget and your internal IT support resources to higher priority projects, and get out of the kind of desktop refreshes, server refreshes that we're traditionally thinking of for not a lot of cost and complexity. I think one of the things that scares people away from WVD is it sounds expensive because it's in Azure, and it sounds complicated because it has the words Windows and virtual and desktop in the title. But right now, just to like Jason's point, we're running a promo that we can get you guys stood up, have you kick the tires on it, and if you're interested in it, deploying it. For folks that are interested in doing a managed virtual desktop partnership with Oakwood, we're actually giving away that that initial proof of concept. So if you sign up with us for a year, we'll give away that stand up, kick the tires piece. But yeah, like I said, once again, hats off to Jason for covering, I think, a lot of the what's in it for me and technical back end of it. Hopefully folks got that out of there, but happy to answer any further questions.
Thanks for that, Jesse, and thanks again to Jason for pulling this together today. Hopefully you found some value out of this. If you guys have any questions, obviously you see a couple email addresses up there in front of you, and I will be sure to reach out to everybody. I'll make sure to edit down this video presentation so that you can perhaps review anything you may have missed or push it along to any of your colleagues that might be interested in sharing this information as well. So I don't see any other questions. So I think we'll go ahead and cut you guys loose. We finished a nice tight 35 or 40 minutes or so, which I think is pretty good for the subject matter. So anyway, thanks again for attending. And if you have any questions, be sure to let us know. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, everyone.